Hello to YouTube world. This is Uncle Fester with Shade Tree Survivalist. This is going to be my third attempt at this. I'm wanting to start a new series on making chainmail and making it from the ground up, about how to make your own jump rings and your links and different things like that. And I think before we can get started with that, I think that we have to kind of go do a slide overview of the tools that's going to be necessary, and just my method of how I approach it and how I do things. This is my third attempt at this, so hopefully maybe third time's the charm me getting this. I had an alarm go off yesterday, and So without further ado, I'll start off with the reason why it is that I decided to get into chainmail. I work for a municipality, and like most municipality, they rent our clothes for us. I mean, I have rented uniforms that I've wore, and I've wore probably now for 26 years that I've done it. And over 26 years, there's one thing that's always bothered me, and that's the wire coat hangers. That's what they always put it on. And with the wire coat hangers, I can't tell you how many hundreds of wire coat hangers I have thrown away over the year, because they just sort of pile up. And you'll go in there and you can't even put your clothes in the closet for all of the clothes hangers everywhere in there. So I always thought to myself, there's got to be a practical use for these things. There's got to be something out there that it can be used, that you can use these things for. Because I hate to just throw anything away. I'm a bit of a hoarder, so I have to kind of watch myself about the things that I hoard, because I've got a very bad habit about gathering up stuff and then forgetting what it was that I gathered it up for, and it just kind of sitting around. So I've made it a point that if I haven't used it within a year, I try to go through and clean all of my stuff out and throw away what I haven't used. And usually probably about 5 days after I've threw it away, I come up with a good use for it. And so one day I was messing around with YouTube like I normally do, and I come across a tutorial on chainmail. I have no idea why the algorithm put that out there, but one of the few times YouTube's algorithm might have actually done something worthwhile as far as I'm concerned. So I sat down and I'm watching the chainmail thing, and I'm seeing how they make it, and I'm thinking to myself, now I have a use for the coat hanger. So I went out amongst my general pile of junk. One of the first things when you're making your own, what they call jump rings, or your links, and it's the little circles that make up the chainmail in general, you have to have something called a mandrel. And the mandrel is what you make your links on. You use the mandrel to make coils, and then you cut your links out of the coils. There's very elaborate ways of making the mandrels. They have the two pieces of wood this way and one across the bottom, and then you've got like a little handle or whatever. But this is my mandrel, okay? And you see it's got the one little side down here. And the thing about a mandrel, it's very simple. This is my 1/2 inch mandrel. In making a link, the inside diameter of the links or the jump rings that this mandrel is going to make is going to be 1/2 inch. So all I did with this was I went out and you can see right here, I flattened down a little part of the round stock, and then I just drilled a hole right through the middle of it. See if you can, no, that lights too much on it. But anyway, you just drill a hole right through there, and this is what you use to make your links with. I have a 1/2 inch one, a 3/8 inch one, which makes kind of intermediate ones. A little bit different handle on that one. And then I have my 1/4 inch mandrel. All of it's the same way. Now my 1/4 inch and my 3/8 inch, if you'll see here, I took off way too much. One of the things that I have learned is that you don't have to take it off the bottom. What you have to do is just sort of flatten the top so that you can drill your hole through. One of the things that you want to watch out for, the way I was drilling the hole, I got a little bit off, and in being off don't know if you can see that, but that's right there supposed to be straight. And that's probably about how far off it is. The more you use these, you will wallow out the hole. So the more metal that I don't know if you can see how close it is on that side, but it's very, very close on that side. I was off by a lot, but still, it works fine. It's just that it'll probably end up wallowing out that metal to the point that I'll end up breaking it on one side, and that's not something that you want. So that's the main piece of what you'll use to make your jump rings with. The second thing that that is the heart of the operation, other than the mandrel, is these. These are bolt cutters. If you're going to be doing any kind of making your own rings, your own jump rings or whatever, these right here are essential. These are 8-inch bolt cutters. They're made by Vulcan. I paid maybe $20 for them. The heads on these you're not able to change these out. At least I don't think that you are anyway. They've got like a chromium vanadium set of cutters on it. And see how it comes right back out. It's got the spring. These things right here, they're just invaluable. They really are, because especially with the gauge wire that I use, which is this, is the as big as it is. You need something substantial enough to be able to cut through there, because even with the bolt cutters, I have to struggle a little bit to be able to even cut through it, through that particular material, because that coat hanger material is pretty big gauge stuff. Probably a little bit bigger than what I needed, a little bit heavier than what I needed, but you know, it is free. It's laying around, so whatever negatives it has, it's kind of hard to overcome the positive. The next thing that you will need, more than likely, now these right here, nothing but a bent pair of needle nose pliers, what we call needle nose pliers. There are a lot of people that I have watched on YouTube that swear by these things, and usually they use this little part right here when they're bending the links. They use it like this right here. I do not like this. I don't know. It's just, I never did get a like for it. It's not my cup of tea as far as working on chainmail. If it's yours, that's just an option out there. Different strokes for different folks. These was worth their weight in gold. And I'm going to tell you, the secret to any kind of pliers that you buy to do chainmail is this right here. That little flex where it opens it back up and everything. It saves you, with these, when you're using them, you have to kind of, I've always kind of did this number right here to do whatever it was that I was going to do with it, but it's awkward when you're having to sit down there and try to do whatever it is that you're going to do with it, and have that one little pinky there. And if you do chainmail and you get into it and you like it and you enjoy it, you will be doing thousands of jump rings. And that little motion right there doesn't seem like much, but when you start getting into dealing with thousands of different jump rings, opening and closing them, straightening them, and everything else. The other piece that I like is this one. It's there again. It's got my little, get out the light here. It's got my little saver where it opens it back up. Now, what these pliers are, I have no idea, but these are got just enough end on them, but the way they taper, they're better than lineman pliers. I started off with lineman pliers, and lineman pliers, man, is just not, for me, was not the ticket. I found this right here laying around, that I had laying around for years and years. Had almost threw it away a couple of times because I was like, kept it because it was tool steel, and I was like, I don't try to throw tool steel away because it can always be pounded into something later if I don't find a use for it. Invaluable in what I'm doing. Early on, I bought a pair of these, and these are Stanley. These are Walmart specials from those Stanley specials from Walmart. See right there, that's the That's the number right there. And just honestly, these things right here are less than useless. I can't even use this when I'm just doing my regular wire stripping. Uh, they just have no cutting ability. Waste of $5. I mean, it was cheap. I knew it was cheap. You do not get your bang for the buck from that. So I mean, just for me, in my experience, that's not what you want to mess with. That's Now this is my handy dandy Gerber. Now there are those of you that might have a regular pair of what they call wire pliers. That's the normal ones and everything, but you will want in your collection of tools a pair of pliers that's got this little area right here, because this little area right here is what you use if something's out of round. You can put the ring in there and you can bring it back into round, or you can sometimes get this back here. Sometimes when you're doing this right here, one end will be a little bit higher than the other, and you can make it level, line it up. Now, and what I will be doing will be butted chainmail. And here again, that's just where the one end butts up against the other. That's a little bit open so you can see. And this is a closed one. You see how this one right here hasn't been closed up yet. That's how they generally come out of the coil. But they just butt up against each other. Now this kind of ring is used for cosplay, LARP, just messing around basically. This chainmail that's made out of this will not protect you. It's better than nothing, but not by much. When you put up the weight ratio and everything else that goes along, the time that you spend making it and everything, if you're making it for protection against anything, you're wasting your time with that stuff. With this right here, this is what they call the first level chainmail. Okay, it's easy. I'm portable, so everywhere I go, I have this bag. I have what I call my man knitting bag, because that's about what chainmail is. It's just knitting for men. Same kind of pattern. You get your things out. It looks a lot like just knitting in metal. Only difference is my stuff's a lot manlier and it looks a lot better than a lot of the stuff that my grandmother made. But the next up would be riveted chainmail. Now, riveted chainmail was what most people in the historical times would have used. And what would have happened with riveted is that instead of stopping it right here, they would have brought it over to this way, where the two pieces would have overlapped each other. And then they would have heated it up, and they would have beat it flat, and then they would have drilled a hole through it, and then they would have taken another piece of metal and at the size of the hole that they drilled, and they would put a short piece in the link, and then they would have beat it flat, and they would have made their own rivet. That's pretty much how a rivet works. If you were higher up, if you were a king or you a prince or somebody that had a nobleman that had the means to buy it, welded chainmail would have been the thing, because then they take it and they would have either overlaid it like this, they would have heated it up, and then they would have beat it together to weld it into one piece, or they would have welded the ends, put the ends of it together, and then used another piece like this right here, and then just beat in another piece. Lots of different ways. The modern, we'll get into this point. Most people that are doing chainmail are either in as historically accurate chainmail. I don't make that. I am more of kind of for me it's just a hobby, but I kind of approach it more from like an apocalyptic kind of a chainmailer. I mean, it's like, if things went bad, extra layer of protection, whatever. I mean, to me, it's just nothing more than it's just plain fun. I enjoy it. It's a hobby. I enjoy trying to come up with different ways to incorporate it into other things. I have an idea that one day one of the projects that I want to do is take a jean jacket and attach the panels, chainmail to some of the panels on the jean jacket, just little things like that. I mean, it's more of an art thing for me than it is historical. Not that I don't play around with other things, but that's pretty much kind of the long and the short of why I play with chainmails. Just enjoy it. It's very simple, but it gets very complex very quick. And if you ever lose the pattern, you have to go all the way back to wherever it was that you messed up to make it look right. Because if it's not right and the pattern's off, you will see it. Trust me, and everybody else will too. So with that covered, let me kind of show you the process. I didn't have it out and ready. I gotta find a better way to organize my hangers in my bag. Right now they do like they normally do and calls an eagle's nest, but it's very simple. You start off the way you normally would by unwinding the, well, it don't want to cooperate. Sometimes it don't want to come apart. There it went. You do it just like you normally would. Now, with the coat hangers, these little squiggly parts will not be able to be used, or you can use it, but it's going to make your piece look really not nice. So it's just a matter of how much metal that you have to use. Most chain millers, I will say this, let me put that out there. Most chain millers go out and they buy electric fence wire, usually 18 gauge to 20 gauge, and it's not cheap, but as far as what you get out of it, you get close to a quarter mile of wire to make chainmail out of, and most of those guys are stationary when they do their work. See, I have got the hook. You want the wire straightened out as much as possible, not a big deal. But most of the guys that have like a shop or whatever where they do their craft at, they a lot of times they'll put those two little pieces up and they'll put the mandrel in it, and it's like I said, they'll sit down and they'll have the little handle, or while mine are made out of metal, you can make you can use a wooden dowel. I mean, you can use, you know, anything that's round that you can drill through, that is strong enough to bend whatever the medium you're using with. You can do that. But when you're doing it, you start off, take the hole and you take your piece. There again, like I said, I'm portable with mine. I like to, sometimes when I'm out and about with my kids and they're doing whatever, I'll pull out my chain bag out of the car and I'll start making chainmail. You put that little piece in there again, and I'm bending it around. Now, one of the things that you want to pay attention to is you want to leave yourself just a little hook, enough to get your cutters on, because if you don't, you're going to end up having to use a hacksaw or something else. Trust me, the first time I did this, I thought I wasn't ever going to get, because I didn't have my bolt cutters at the time, I didn't think I was ever going to get that little tag piece cut out so that I could do it. But you begin to just wrap. And it's kept catching on another piece. It's the first time I've ever done that to me. Oh well. Now, for me, when I'm doing this, I'm turning this away from me. Okay? And then I'm just pushing down on it with my thumb and directing where I want the wire to go over here. Get my hand out of the way so you can see what it's doing. But you want to keep your coils as tight as possible, and this is, you're making the jump rings that you're going to need to use in the links, or what I call links, to use in your chainmail. And it's just real simple. You here and you bend it. Now the thing that you'll notice with this is I bend it and then I let it relax. If you just keep bending that thing and you don't let it relax, eventually what you're going to end up with is a scar. I don't have the scar on there as visible. I don't think you can really see it, but I didn't let the pressure off of it, and it came back across, and it cut both my finger and my hand. Thought I was gonna take it to the hospital because usually you got a ragged edge on the end of these things anyway. And if you don't have a ragged edge, even just the regular edge, when the force that these things come off with, because you're essentially making a giant spring. That's what the coil really is nothing more than just making a giant spring. So if you've ever wondered how they make trampoline springs or whatever, here you go. So I'm twisting it up. It's like I say, you just kind of keep it tight. Keep it messing up. And I usually take mine all the way up. This is where it usually gets you at, right here. If it's going to get you, it's going to get you right about there. Because usually it snaps back at you. Now I'll leave this little tag down here. It's usually about 1 inch to a 1/2 inch tag that I leave right there, and I'll show you why I do that in just a moment. But you've got this little piece up here, and all you do is take your bolt cutters, cut that out. Now I have a lot of these, and I simply put them up, and I do that because right now I do not have the ability to access to a blowtorch or a soldering iron of any sort. But if I ever decide that I want to rivet or I want to solder them together or try to braze them together, I have all of these little, what I call seconds. You really can't use them for anything because the shape's off, but they're there. Now, the reason that I keep this little tag here is when you try to pull it off this way, it don't want to come. But when I grab it here, it gives me something to hold on to when I'm trying to pull it off. It gives me something to work with. And what you have right here is a coil, what I call a coil. It's just basically a giant spring. And you see how this is off right here? Most of the time, I just cut that off because it ain't worth the amount of time that it takes to try to fix that up. And then you go to the other end, and right here where it begins to coil off, if I can keep it on camera and keep it light out of it. Usually I try to hold on to it, because if you don't, it'll shoot across the room. And one of the other things that I'm not doing right now that I probably should, that I normally do, is I wear safety glasses, because this stuff right here will shoot off in directions that you could only imagine. But when you get ready to make your links, you see right here where it lines up to do butted, I just simply line up right about there with the edge of the link where the end of the wire is at. And you will not do two with this big stuff. And what I have made is a jump ring. That is a jump ring right there. And what you would do with this is that, the way I do it, now this is the way I generally bend them. I usually sit down and hold these this way. There we go. Lost them for a minute. This way. And what you want to do, you have a little click. That's when you know you've got them tight. You got the ring pretty tight. And there you go. Now, if I was going to link this, I could take this other one that's not been closed up right here. It doesn't matter whether it's been closed or not, but I can take it and open it up. And that's called an open jump ring. So if you hear me say open jump ring, that's what I'm doing. This is a closed jump ring, and this is an open jump ring, and then you just link them together. And as you begin to link them together, different patterns that you use. This right here would be 2-in-1. But you see how I've got that little bit of gap right there? That's where these come in. I would come in and take these, and if it'll fit, the 1/2 inch stuff you can get away with doing this. Some of the smaller stuff you can't, but you just, and then you move the link up and it helps. And another thing that makes a big difference, see, I can use, this is what I started off using when I first got started playing. You hear that little click? I'm bringing it together, and that is butted chainmail. That's the beginning of a pattern right there. So, right there. Now, the idea is, well, let me see what I did with it. Oh, there it is. Pardon what's left of my hair. You see, I'm a bald man. See, I'm just kind of, it's just all messed up there. I'm about gone. So when I got started, I said, well, I want some, I said, I might as well put that talent to use. There, I got an iron wig. Let's see if I can go all the way around with it. Maybe you can see it all the way around on there. But that's my iron wig, and it's getting a little bit longer and longer. Now, this is incomplete. This is 4-in-1 European weave. So it's 1/2 inch. It's this size rings. This becomes this when you know what you're doing with it. And it's just like putting together kind of like a hat at the top, and then you do like a hat band around the bottom, and then this is called the skirt. And right about here, I'm going to pull a piece that's going to come across. It's going to be the chin piece, and then I'm going to come out to here, probably about down to here, with what's referred to as a mantle. So this is one of the few things that you can do with it. This is like the major thing that I'm doing. The other thing that you can do with it is go crazy with it. See, I've made a chain. This right here, if I show it up to you, this is 3-in-1. It's a very square weave. It's a 3-in-1 half Persian. It's a Persian. It's a 3-in-1 Persian half twist. And I've used copper, 1/2 inch copper, and 1/2 inch coat hanger, or 1/2 inch steel, to sit down and make a chain. And this right here eventually is going to, I could do this number right here with it if I wanted to, but what I'm going to eventually do with this is I'm going to make a hat band. I've got a wide brim hat that I want to use it for a hat band. You can use this to make roses, crosses. I mean, it's just it's endless things that you can use it to make. So that's my overview. Next one, hopefully we're going to get started trying to make a project, starting on another project, and I'm trying to decide whether I'm going to do another 4-in-1, or I have been thinking about doing a 2-in-8. Essentially the same thing, only it's much thicker, and it looks a lot more like ramen noodle, kind of a ramen noodle pattern as it's going down when you get finished with it. If there's any questions, if there's something that you feel like I left out, or if there's something that you want to know about, please leave it in the comments. And I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your consideration. And this is Uncle Fester with Shade Tree Survivalists, telling you to let go and let God.